Down. Keep, test 1, testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3. Test 1, testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Test, test, test. Test, test. Testing 1, 2. Yeah, turn it away from the mic. There we go. Testing 1, 2. Test 1. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2. Is that good? Testing 1, 2. All right. And so we'll be
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. Today is an important day in the negotiation process as we work to turn around our state government. Today we are reintroducing 5 important pieces of legislation designed to turn around the state of Illinois. These are 5 pieces of legislation that reflect compromise that we have negotiated with leaders in the General Assembly as well as with the mayor of Chicago, reflecting their ideas and their concerns. A couple of the bills have been introduced in May with no changes so far because we haven't had updated feedback from legislators on those. Others reflect significant changes and updates incorporating the recommended changes from leaders in the General Assembly. Those 5 pieces of legislation deal with term limits, redistricting reform, property tax freeze, a real property tax freeze, as well as workers' comp reform and tort reform. The 2 bills that are the most significantly different from those that we introduced in May are the bills dealing with the property tax freeze as well as with workers' comp. Those are the 2 that we've received the most feedback on, and we've tried to incorporate the changes recommended by leaders in those 2 bills. Is the speaker not working? I'm sorry, is this not working? So it's all okay? Okay. We are also making public today, and will soon introduce, a significant pension reform bill. This bill reflects negotiations with the City of Chicago, with President Cullerton, many members of the General Assembly in both the Republican caucus as well as the Democratic caucus. What we've tried to do is incorporate the ideas of all the various leaders to create an opportunity for significant cost savings in the pension systems throughout the state of Illinois. The changes in this bill, the recommended structural changes for our pensions, reflect the ideas from the mayor, and we do incorporate the mayor's police and fire new ramp bill inside this pension bill. We also incorporate Cook County President Tony Preckwinkle's pension reform bill into this comprehensive bill. We also recommend and include a new payment ramp for downstate police and fire pension payments inside this bill. We also include President Cullerton's idea for consideration in cost of living adjustments inside pensions for schools and other pension systems around the state. And then we take President Cullerton's ideas and include them into our recommended model for state employees, where we use consideration using President Cullerton's approach to encourage people to choose to move either into Tier 2 or Tier 3 as state employees. We believe this pension bill will allow taxpayers in Illinois to save a couple $2 billion per year if it were fully implemented, and we believe it's both fair and reasonable for government employees as well as fair and reasonable for taxpayers, and it reflects what we hope and believe is good bipartisan reform. Today, we are calling on the General Assembly to take up these issues, these bills, expeditiously. Time matters. It's very disappointing that we have yet to have a single one of our reform bills called for a vote in the General Assembly. There has not been a single one of our recommended reform bills called for a vote. There have been pieces of a few bills called, and more as on a sham vote basis, more for public spectacle than true debate and discussion and vote. We're asking for the General Assembly to take up the actual bills themselves, discuss them, and vote on them. We are at a critical point. We are now well into overtime. We're into the new fiscal year. We do not yet have a state budget. The General Assembly has made sure that their salaries are continuing to be paid. They are part of a continuing appropriation. As I think you all know, we are in court today. Our administration is fighting to have state employees treated exactly the same as legislators are treated. We believe an honest day's work deserves a full day's pay, and we believe all state employees should be paid their full salary on time. We hope to get this successfully resolved in court soon. This process will unfold in the coming days. But again, we are calling on Speaker Madigan to take up these bills, the specific bills, not pieces, the entire bills. And I would also concur with Leader Durkin in his statements yesterday. He said, and I strongly agree with him, that if the Speaker in the General Assembly doesn't want to take up reforms, doesn't want to pass any real structural reforms, then they should go ahead and pass a tax hike. They have a supermajority. They're fully capable of increasing the taxes. What they haven't done is deal with a truly balanced budget. They've passed so far a spending plan that's $4 billion in the hole, and then nothing else. It's fundamentally irresponsible. That's the kind of behavior that's got us into this mess in the first place. Passing a bill, passing a budget that spends money we don't have, kicking the can down the road, and then pointing fingers, laying blame, and doing nothing else. It's irresponsible. We can't have that. What we're asking is the General Assembly to take up our bills and do reform, and then we are happy and eager to work with them to do tax reform and discuss new revenues and work with them on a bipartisan basis. But if they refuse to deal with true reform and take up and vote on our bills, then they should go ahead and pass a tax hike. If they refuse to do a tax hike, irresponsible, only pass a spending bill with no revenue to pay for it, it's unconstitutional, irresponsible, and it's the behavior that's gotten us into this mess. Speaker Madigan needs to make a decision. We're going to support reforms or support a tax hike. It's one or the other. Can't just pass a spending plan with no revenue to support it and then go away and start laying blame. That's irresponsible, unacceptable. We're not going to accept that. Questions?
One of the property tax freeze votes in the House included, there was an amendment that included your reforms for kind of collective bargaining at the local level. That, the Democrats said, was exactly your bill, with property tax freeze and the reforms at the local level. They got no votes, no Republicans, no Democrats.
They have not ever taken up our true bills. I would like them to do. They don't have our exact bills. They should vote on our bills.
Governor, do they just need to vote on your bills for you to be willing to consider a tax increase, or do they need to pass the bill?
They need to pass some of them. Here's the issue. We're not dealing with the challenges of the state. The most important thing we've got to do is grow. We are not growing. And if we don't grow our economy, grow high-quality, high-paying jobs, we're not going to solve any of our other problems. And to only talk about a tax hike with no reforms whatsoever will continue to cause deterioration, loss of economic opportunity, deterioration of our tax base, an inability to have balanced budgets in the future, and inability to fund our pensions. We need reforms as part of tax revenue, tax overhaul.
Are you encouraged at all, Governor, that the unemployment rate has kept coming down? It's about half of what it was a few years ago?
The primary reason, unfortunately, for our unemployment rate falling has been many of those jobs have left, and then the folks have left. And they've stopped looking for work, or they've moved to other states to get jobs. That's a horrible reason to have an unemployment rate fall. That's a big part of the reason that that's happened. And we are losing our people, we're losing our jobs. That's got to change. We need to grow.
Governor, if the House does follow what the Senate did and passes a temporary budget to get us through July while there is this impasse, what do you plan to do on it? Sit on it, veto it, or sign it?
That bill is a mistake. I don't support a one-month unbalanced budget. This is just getting to their $4 billion hole 1 month at a time. So I don't support that bill. I will not sign. I don't support that bill.
Governor, how do you plan to pay state workers without a budget? If they look at the judge in the eye and say, "You're wrong, Your Honor"?
We had this exact same issue in 2007, and the governor's office came together with government union leaders, with the comptroller and with the Attorney General, and they worked out an agreement where state employees could receive their full salaries on time. We believe we could do that exact same thing now. Not sure why the Attorney General has chosen to take a different stance this year than she did in '07. I don't know the answer for that. Both the Attorney General and the Speaker are fighting now against state employees receiving their salaries. We disagree with them on that. We think we could take the exact same structure that was put in place in '07 and do that this year to get through this challenge that we're facing at the moment. And barring that, what we've also said is that the General Assembly could and should pass a continuing appropriation for state employees. The General Assembly has passed a bill to pay their own salaries. They are part-time workers for the people of Illinois. They have a bill. They now have the ability to get paid their salaries all the way through this process, no matter what. We believe it's reasonable for them to do the same thing for state employees who are actually full-time workers. They could do the same thing, and we are advocating a bill right now to have a continuing appropriation for state employees.
Governor, why do you think Speaker would be any more open to these new revamped proposals that he has in the past? And he's made it very clear he doesn't want to consider non-budget issues.
Every one of our reforms has everything to do with the budget. We have now 2 bills that can help fix the budget immediately day one. One is our property tax freeze with control of collective bargaining and costs inside government. That directly helps the tax burden in the state. Our pension reform bill directly deal with the budget. The economic growth bills, the job creation bills, workers' comp and tort reform, those have significant budget impact. If we can grow our economy, have businesses hiring and growing and moving into Illinois, we can deal with our deficits much more readily. We can have much more easily balanced budgets. And long term, good government with responsive, responsible elected officials through term limits and redistricting reform so we can have competitive elections, curb corruption, have people who are true public servants in office for a few years and then moving to other offices and not getting entrenched, so they're responsive to voters. That's a great way to help have balanced budgets long term. All of these can help get a balanced budget, and they are very related to our budget discussions.
I said about causation or traveling employees and the workers' comp compromise, are those off the table while these proposed commissions, panels study that issue? Or are you saying, okay, I'm willing to debate causation?
Causation is still very much part of our recommended reforms. It should be in the summary there. Hopefully you've all received the summaries of all of our bills. We'll get the exact language in our bills today, so you can have the full detail, and we look forward to discussing those with you. Yes, sir.
What's the change you're saying? Let's, for example,
we're now, President Cullerton requested that we have an ombudsman be part of our workers' comp process. There are 5 or 6 things that the President has called for, and we've tried to include those in our workers' comp bill. Yes, sir.
About 5 basic items now, in an effort to hopefully come to an agreement somehow. How long are you willing to let the workers, if the court's decision holds up, to go without payment before you have to reduce that turnaround into maybe 2 or 3 more items?
We are going to get the workers paid one way or another. They are going to get paid. And we're asking them to continue to come to work. They're going to get their full salaries. We are also working with Credit Union One and other lenders to make no-interest loans to those families who might need them in the short term while we work these issues through the courts. One way or another, we're going to make sure folks get paid.
How do you get salaries in the budget
I'm
instead
sorry?
of doing that out? Why did you just use your authority to leave state employees' salaries?
That budget was $4 billion in the hole. And to go through, we need major changes in that budget. And to go through line item veto doesn't make sense. What's very easy right now, we could pass a continuing appropriation for state employees. That could be done in a matter of moments. We could do that tomorrow. That's what we're recommending.
But even if you're allowed to guarantee the workers' paychecks, how long will you let this state go without a budget? Is there a period where you're like, all right, enough's enough, we need to lock everyone in the room and get something done?
We could have and should have resolved this months ago. We are eager to do it. And Speaker Madigan controls the process, and he controls a significant number of members of the General Assembly. The Speaker has passed an unbalanced budget, $4 billion in the hole. The exact behavior that's caused our problem in the first place. We've said, okay, we'll deal with that budget and we'll work with you in good faith to do tax reform and find new revenue. But in order to do that, we would like reforms so we don't only raise taxes, damage our economy, raise the cost of living for working families in the state. Let's get reforms. So far, he's refused. President Cullerton has worked with us. The mayor in Chicago has worked with us. So far, the speaker has refused reforms. And what we've said to the speaker is, if you don't want to discuss reforms in good faith, go ahead and then get the revenue so we have a balanced budget. Pass a tax hike. Go ahead. You have a supermajority. He can do it. But he's got to choose. He's got a fundamental decision right now of reforms and then work with us on a bipartisan basis for revenue, or go ahead and pass a tax hike. He can't only pass an unbalanced budget and then sit back and do nothing and try to blame somebody else. He's got to make a choice. He's in charge. He controls the General Assembly. He's got to make a choice.
What kind of revenue package would you support then if you're saying in the middle somewhere? What would that look like?
Well, again, I don't want to negotiate in the media. But we have discussed a number of ideas in our working groups this spring on a bipartisan basis. There are some good ideas on the table that I could support. I believe we could work that out in a fairly expeditious timeline.
Are you, is pension reform something that you want to see passed now before a revenue increase and a balanced budget?
It's a good question. We have said that pension reform is good and important, but we are not tying it to the budget negotiations. We're not requiring a time frame on that right now. What we're trying to do is be responsive. We've gotten feedback from Cook County President Preckwinkle. She has said if we could get pension reform and get her pension bill done, that she wouldn't have to do the sales tax increase. And let me be clear, I am strongly against any tax increases in Cook County. I think that would be damaging to the economy in that area. I think it would be terrible. And so we're trying to be responsive. I don't think the President's pension reform bill goes far enough. We do more in our pension reform bill, but we've included hers in ours, and so she can choose. We've also included the mayor's police and fire reform bill. We've also included some of his ideas for teacher pension reform. This bill is comprehensive. It's over 500 pages. One of the reasons you don't have the bills yet is, it's a lot of bills, but pages, but we're going to print them out so you have them. We think it's very good reform. We're going to advocate. We'd like to do it expeditiously as soon as possible, but we're not tying that to the others.
You say that you don't want to negotiate the media. When is the last time you spoke with the speaker and said, hey, here are my revamped bills, let's bring them
We're in ongoing dialogue, regular basis. Our staffs are talking all the time. It's just, it's an ongoing process. Communication has been pretty good. There's just so far been a reluctance on the speaker's part to actually make any real movement. And that's what we've got to see. There's a real clear choice. Are we going to stay on the track we've been on, spending money we don't have, true unbalanced budgets, or the choice? And again, we're asking for reform. We think the people of Illinois and the economy of Illinois needs reform. But if that's something that the speaker doesn't want to undertake, then go ahead. Supermajority can pass the tax hike. But you got to do one or the other. It can't just pass an unbalanced budget, do nothing, and then try to point fingers. That's irresponsible.
Last question. Would you sign the tax hike?
I'm sorry?
Would you sign a tax hike if they passed it?
They don't need me to. They got a supermajority. I don't support a tax hike without reforms.
And aren't collective bargaining rights like in the property tax freeze you want? That goes against the core beliefs, according to Speaker Madigan and other Democrats, of what they believe in. How do you expect the overwhelmingly Democratic legislature to tell local governments through legislation that they can do away with collective bargaining rights at the local level by local control?
Well, I'd say two things to that. First of all, local governments don't belong to Springfield. Local governments belong to local voters, local taxpayers. That's who should decide what gets paid for in government, how government is run. Local control is a big issue. Democrats believe in local control just like Republicans. I know some in Springfield would like Springfield to mandate what gets spent and how bidding and contracting goes to the local level, but that's not right. Local voters should decide. And you know what? There are many residents around the state who would agree with the speaker and want everything collectively bargained at the local level. Terrific. All we're saying is let local voters decide. Those who want to keep everything collectively bargained, who want to have prevailing wage, keep it. We're not saying it has to go away. What we're saying is Springfield shouldn't force and mandate those issues for those communities that say, we control our government, it belongs to us, we'll decide what gets bargained, we'll decide the bidding process, they should be entitled to do that. The other point I'll make is this, I don't like taxes, period. I don't like to ever raise taxes. I'm willing to do it as part of reform. I'm willing to do something that goes against my core beliefs. I can ask some folks on the other side of the aisle to vote for some things they'd rather not vote for. Thanks very much, everybody.